Now, we've talked about cliches before, and that's exactly what we're going to look at here. Now, when I say cliche, remember that a cliche is something that is overdone, something that is so common that it doesn't even really have much power anymore. So it just is an overdone, over commonly used idea. And so these are things that you want to avoid. These are cliches or ideas, ways to use introduction methods that would be ineffective. Okay? So, first of all, it is the rhetorical question. So, I want to avoid asking a rhetorical question, which is a question that you ask your audience that you don't expect a response. So, it's kind of like, but it's leading them to a certain answer. So, oftentimes, if the first thing your reader gets is a rhetorical question, it's oftentimes not something that your reader has thought about or cares about. Uh, they don't really care. They're picking up your paper, and then you're asking them questions right away. They don't even necessarily know what your topic is. So the other thing is that like without background of the topic, they might not even realize why this is important. Like, why are you even asking this question? So oftentimes the question might doesn't even make sense half the time. So, for example, a cliche rhetorical question, the way that you might do this paper or an introduction would be something like this. Have you ever heard of the environment? Uh, yes. Like, that's an easy answer. Yes. Therefore, I don't know why you're asking me this question. Like, of course I've heard of it. Why do I care about whether or not I've heard about this? It just does not. It oftentimes leads your reader into a completely different space, thinking about your topic. Even if your question is relevant to your topic, they don't understand why because they don't have the background. So we try to avoid rhetorical questions. Another overdone or cliche introduction is the definition. When you start with a dictionary definition of a word or idea. Try to avoid these because, again, your reader might not understand why you're defining something. And so they're immediately, if they read your first sentence and then and they ask the question, why, then it's an ineffective introduction technique. So for an example, Webster's dictionary defines environment as the natural world all around us. Well, like, no kidding. Like, again, your audience might already know this stuff. They might not see why it's relevant. They don't know why you're defining something. The definition is just not, it's not something that you use at a high school level because it leads to more questions from your audience than it answers any questions. So, want to avoid the definition. We also we also want to avoid starting with a random quotation. Again, starting with a quote oftentimes leads your reader to be confused. So sometimes it's okay, but oftentimes it's kind of seen as like your reader, it seems easy, like, oh, just grab a good quote. But again, your reader oftentimes doesn't know why the quote is important. They don't understand why you're using the quote, so it seems kind of random. Um, so For example, famous environmentalist Greta Thunberg once said, "We aren't destroying the biosphere because we are selfish. We are doing it because simply because we are unaware." Like, sure, that sounds like a really really thoughtful quote, but I don't know why it's credible. Like, why is it even why bring that up? Who cares? Like, why is this important to the paper? And what all of these potential introduction techniques have in common is they start moving around your topic without your audience having a clear understanding of what your paper topic is. So students I've found actually use these quite a bit because they think these are easy introductions. And they're only easy if you don't think about them. They are difficult if you consider why you're doing your introductions, and what the introduction is supposed to do, and thinking about your audience. But Like, yeah, I can ask a random question. That's not that difficult. I don't have to think much about that. But really you do. You have to think about what your reader understands and what they know and how they are going to respond to that question. Anyone can pick out a definition from a dictionary, but you need to make sure that if you're going to define something, it's relevant. And most of the time, your audience hasn't read your paper yet to know why it's relevant. Same thing with the quote. They don't even know why it's relevant. What do I do then?